Well, welcome to North Tyneside on Trafalgar Day. We gather 211 years on to remember the Battle of Trafalgar and to celebrate the achievements of our local Geordie hero, Vice Admiral Lord Collingwood. Cuthbert Collingwood played a crucial role in the British naval history. He fired the first shot at Trafalgar from his flagship, the Royal Sovereign. Indeed, it could have actually come from one of the four 32-pound cannons taken from the Royal Sovereign up there. He took command over the British fleet after the death of his friend Nelson, and his leadership in that battle ensured that the British did not lose a single ship at Trafalgar. The enemy forces were defeated, and Napoleon's ambition to bring his 115,000 troops that he had stationed in Boulogne to invade across the Channel was halted. Otherwise, we could all now be speaking French. So, Cuthbert Collingwood, merci, je ne sais pas. This monument, erected in 1845, was sculptured by John Graham Lowe, who incidentally also sculptured the George Stephenson statue next to the central station. He was originally chosen to design the lions at the foot of Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square. And this monument shows Collingwood standing upon a classical John Dobson pedestal facing out upon the mouth of the river and the sea which he was born and lived upon. And today's event symbolises the pride we have in Cuthbert Collingwood. His naval skills, his leadership and compassion all inspired the men under him. He was against flogging and the press gang. And the crewman, Robert Hare, described him as follows: a better seaman, a better friend to the seamen, a more zealous defender of the country's rights and honours never trod the quarterdeck. His achievements were recognised in a career that saw him promoted to the status of Vice Admiral. So North Tyneside Council is delighted to host a special Toast to the Admiral event as our contribution to commemorate the Trafalgar Day and to raise awareness upon the achievements of Vice Admiral Lord Collingwood. He was a local hero, he was a nation's hero. Our pride in our maritime history is also matched with our pride in our Royal Navy. I'd like to extend our special thanks to HMS Collingwood and HMS Gillespie who were supporting today's event. At Trafalgar, when the enemy opened fire, it was the blue ensign that Collingwood hoisted, signalling his status as a Vice Admiral of the Blue. Today in North Tyneside, we once again raise the blue ensign in honour of Collingwood, Vice Admiral of the Blue. It is now with great pleasure that I introduce you to Captain Andy Jordan, Commanding Officer of HMS Collingwood, who will take us forward into today's toast. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's my great privilege to again provide the oration to commemorate one of the nation's greatest naval heroes, Cuthbert Collingwood, Vice Admiral of the Red. If you heard my address last year, you may remember that I spoke about the timeless qualities that Collingwood possessed. His humanity, bravery, tactical nous, strategic vision, and diplomatic flair, and how very much those qualities were needed today, now as much as ever. This year, though, I thought I'd go back and see how those qualities made Collingwood and Nelson the perfect combination to deliver victory at Trafalgar. Collingwood's part at Trafalgar is often overlooked. He did indeed live in the shadow of his great friend. Indeed, in many accounts of the period, Collingwood is even tended to suffer at the hands of biographers because he wasn't another Nelson. But that's patently unfair. While Collingwood may not have been as flamboyant a character, he was just as important to the result of the battle that day. Piers Mackenzie's judgment of Collingwood's character illustrates why. His grave good humour and unassuming goodness his temperate judgment and moderation in conduct and policy, and a reserved and aloof manner contrasted with the warm and passionate nature of Nelson. Nelson would have been on the front page of The Sun. I think Collingwood may have found himself stuck in the Times. So at Trafalgar, it was Nelson's tactical genius in deploying the fleet that gave the opportunity for victory by crossing the line. But it was Collingwood's utter professionalism, judgment, and consummate seamanship which exploited the opportunity created and preserved the British fleet after the battle. At about this time, on October the 21st, 1805, the two opposing fleets were closing each other. The Royal Navy were deployed in two columns, with Nelson in his flagship Victory in one and Collingwood in Royal Sovereign in the other. I quote now from Collingwood's own dispatch on the battle. The action began at 12 o'clock by the leading ships of the columns breaking through the enemy's line. The Commander-in-Chief about the 10th ship from the van, that's Nelson. The second-in-command, Collingwood, about the 12th from the rear, leaving the van of the enemy unoccupied. The succeeding ships breaking through in all parts, astern of their leaders and engaging the enemy at the muzzles of their guns. The conflict was severe. The enemy's ships were fought with a gallantry highly honourable to their officers, but the attack on them by the Navy was irresistible, and it pleased the Almighty, disposer of all events, to grant His Majesty's arms a complete and glorious victory. Of course, during that action, Nelson fell, quite early on in fact, and Collingwood had to assume command of not just of his own column, but the entire British fleet deployed that day. In the aftermath of the battle, it was Nelson's plan to take the fleet to anchor, to recover. But Collingwood realised with the growing storm there would be danger to the fleet. They were close to a lee shore, and he therefore attempted to get the fleet further to sea, and in the process saved them. Again, in his own words. The whole fleet were now in a very perilous situation. Many dismasted, all shattered, in 13 fathoms of water, off the shoals of Cape Trafalgar. And when I made the signal to prepare to anchor, few of the ships even had an anchor to let go, their cables being shot. But the same good providence which aided us through the day preserved us in the night, by the wind shifting a few points and drifting the ships off the land. Yes, divine providence, but superlative seamanship too. Collingwood's famous quotation from the morning of Trafalgar was, "Now, gentlemen, let us do something today which the world may talk of hereafter." I think it's fair to say that he, they, and indeed the whole fleet certainly did just that. He remains a national hero worthy of our continued admiration. Therefore, may I ask you to turn and raise a glass, thank you very much, to Cuthbert Collingwood, Vice Admiral of the Red, First Baron Collingwood of Colborne and Hefpool in Northumberland. Cuthbert Collingwood. Thank you very much indeed.